That's not possible. That doesn't work. Human beings can't just turn off their ability to have thoughts. We have Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Today, we're talking about Pinterest coping strategies. I know that you guys have asked for a video about coping strategies, and this is like a little bit of an ethical gray area because I can't, again, give you guys specific advice because this channel is not therapy. It is not a replacement or a substitute for therapy, and I cannot speak to your specific situation or needs or what have you because I'm not your therapist and I'm just a lady who yams on about mental health on the internet while in my spare bedroom with my husband. So we're doing that in sort of a roundabout way. I'm going to talk about some coping strategies that I found on Pinterest. I did this because Pinterest is like very popular for these like listicle style articles and graphics and things. So I thought it would be a good place to look. Turns out it was, which by the way, if you didn't know, I just started a Pinterest, so you can follow me there. Lots of fun and interesting stuff on Pinterest. So I'd love to have you check it out. Anyways, we are going to do like a therapist reviews coping strategies that I found on Pinterest. I'm doing this a lot today. Lots of this movement. Maybe, can we put a rainbow in here somewhere? Anyways, because I think, this is something we've talked about on the channel before, but there is a lot of room for interpretation of mental health advice on the internet and especially on Pinterest. So I like making these videos to kind of talk about what to look for in terms of credible content, how to spot recommendations or tips and tricks that are based in fact and science and those that are not. So let's talk about it. Like I mentioned before, Pinterest is very popular for this like listicle style format. There are a lot of infographics and pictures of like 50 coping strategies to use with your kids and whatever. And like, I don't really take any issue with that. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It does touch on something that I wanted to address in this video, which is that coping strategies are different for everybody. There is not one like singular list of coping strategies that I would point to as like the end all be all, these are the ones. Simply because every person is different and will vary in terms of what they need, what works best for them, what their temperament is, what their situation is, what their specific mental illness is, but also that will vary day to day. Sometimes the coping strategies that I use, I pick because I'm in a really like good mood, or maybe I'm feeling really energized, or like coping strategies for anxiety are very different than coping strategies that you would use for depression, etc., etc. There's lots of room for like customization here. I don't know if that's a word, but I guess it is now. So like I said, I don't really take any issue with these like big list format style things. The only thing that I will say about that is when we have like these 50 coping strategies, like this one, some of them will be good, some of them will be not so good. Like on this one, we have create art. That could be a useful coping strategy. I could see that being very effective. We've talked on the channel before about how creative pursuits, especially things that you're using your hands to do, like clay or sculpting or painting or crafting or like things like that, those can be a great medium for expressing emotion and kind of getting it out of your body. But then we also have things on here like eat healthy, which like really has some like diet culture bullshit vibes. So like we don't love that, But again, someone might really vibe with the idea of eating food that seems healthy to them, and that might make them feel loved and improve this feeling of like providing my body with what it needs, nourishing my body. Like that could be really useful to someone. So like kind of, it's like a little bit up in the air. Some of the other ones on here that I wanted to address are the like clean, declutter, and organize. Again, this is one of those ones that like, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. So if you're a person who feels like soothed by cleaning or organizing things, that's great. I think that can also turn into a little bit of a shamey and judgmental conversation because usually like, especially for people with depression or who are not neurotypical that struggle with things like executive dysfunction, it can be really hard to initiate the process of cleaning your house or doing dishes or vacuuming or like what the fuck ever. So, again, it's important that we approach coping strategies from the point of view that like, it's sort of a take what works and leave the rest type of situation. So again, if you are a person who really enjoys cleaning and finds that helpful or soothing or relaxing, have at it. You do you, that's wonderful. But if you're not, please don't feel like this means that there's something wrong with you or that you are doing it wrong or that like you're such a fuck up that you can't even cope properly. Like that's not the case. Again, there are these like big list style formats for a reason, because they are all different for everybody. Okay, yeah, and then there's this other one here. We'll put that one on this side that says 99 coping skills. There's like so many fucking things on here. I'm not going to go through them all because like we don't have the time. I don't have the energy. We don't have the space. But, you know, there's some stuff on here that's like a little bit weird that I wanted to talk about. Like move everything in your room to a new spot, which like to me sounds like a fucking nightmare. But again, I could see that being useful. I know that some therapists have encouraged their clients to try adjusting their environment, particularly if your environment is a trauma trigger. So like during COVID, when a lot of people had to move home into their childhood bedrooms, if that room or that home was the place in which trauma occurred, it can be really useful actually to change that environment so that your brain is associating new stimuli with that environment and you're not immediately being plunged back into that place of like trauma reactivation. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think with coping strategies, oftentimes there's this perspective that it has to look a particular way, like in a very therapist-y way, you know, like the meditation and mindfulness and do some breathing exercises and practice being present in the moment. And like, sure, great. All of that's wonderful. And those are things that we can recommend as coping strategies. But sometimes coping strategies might seem a little bit weird. Sometimes coping strategies are like a little bit outside of the box. One of the things that I've actually recommended to a client before is to shove your feet in the mud because it's like a fun sensory experience and it also forces you to be present in the moment and like live in your body right here, right now, because it's kind of a jarring sensation and it can be really useful to physically ground yourself. Like we have research to support the idea that like literally putting yourself on the ground is helpful when we're feeling overwhelmed, but also because changes in a sensory type of way. So like feeling a different texture, especially temperature change, is a great way to ground yourself and to kind of snap you out of that weird anxiety, kind of panic attacky territory. But like on the face, that sounds like a little bit fucking weird. That's a little bit bizarre, you know? But like if it works for someone, there's no reason it can't be a valid coping strategy. So I want to encourage you guys to exercise a little bit of caution with these big list style formats though, because these can also be rife with toxic positivity, particularly on Pinterest. There's a lot of focus on this like gratitude journaling and like being grateful and, you know, just don't worry about things. And like, that's not helpful. I think it was this one. I don't know, there's 99 fucking items on here, so I'm not going to look through it in real time. I think this one mentioned something about like thought stopping, which is like a very old school CBT technique. If you don't know what thought stopping is, essentially it's the process in which we notice, like for example, negative self-talk. If I'm saying something mean about myself, if I notice that thought coming up, I'll literally say to myself, stop, and like I'm not allowed to think that anymore. This is like kind of troubling because we know now with the emerging research that we have about OCD that this can lend itself to obsessive thought patterns and can actually become a compulsion and can actually turn into a form of avoidance where we're not really dealing with the actual underlying anxiety. We've just figured out a way to go around it and avoid the uncomfortable feeling. So again, I want to encourage you guys to exercise some caution with these. If you find some coping strategies on especially a place like Pinterest that you think might be useful for you, I really want to encourage you to talk to your therapist about that and kind of get their opinion and their feel on it. Because they have, like I said, all that like foundational knowledge to understand, you know, like the sort of scientific basis of why something could be a useful coping strategy. And they might be able to help you create kind of, some people call them like menus or like coping skills boxes or whatever, but they can help you develop like a go-to list of coping strategies that you can go to in the moment when you're like overwhelmed and like going through it. So yeah, I definitely want to encourage you to talk with your therapist about it if you have one. If you don't, I'll link the video about how to find a therapist. I know that therapy is not attainable for everybody, but again, if you do have a therapist, this can be a great thing to talk about in therapy. Your therapist should very much be willing to hold space for that. And if they're not, they are maybe not a good therapist. Okay, there's another one on here. This one, we'll put that one on this side. This fucking pink parade. This, oh boy. So this one is shorter, I'll give it that, but has like all of the toxic things that I would never recommend to clients as coping strategies. The first of which being a thought stopping technique. Take a break from your thoughts. That's not possible. That doesn't work. Human beings can't just turn off their ability to have thoughts. We have hundreds of thousands of thoughts that run through our brain every single day, and it's impossible to just turn it off. This is actually one of my biggest gripes with the way that we've presented mindfulness and meditation, this perspective of like, empty your mind. Like, it doesn't really work that way. Really what we're aiming for is to kind of quiet the mind and like have less of those intrusive anxiety thoughts, but not that your brain is just fucking empty. Like, that's impossible. And again, for all the aforementioned reasons about OCD and compulsions and avoidance, like, not a good thing. Meditation is not a negative thing. I mean, sure. Again, there's lots of misconceptions about meditation, and I think sometimes it can become like an avoidance thing, and like, you know, meditation should not be your only coping strategy. And if we are only using one thing, sometimes it's like, you know, the person whose only tool is a hammer. Like, that's not really going to work in every instance. So be mindful of that. Fucking teas for anxiety and essential oils for anxiety. Like, fuck out of here with that. Drinking tea or coffee or like beverages or food that bring you joy can be a great and valid coping strategy. But when we couple it with the like essential oils thing, like, this just gives me weird MLM like wasp mom vibes, and I don't like it. Essential oils, I made a video about this a long time ago. I don't even know if it's still up on the channel. Essential oils can actually be very dangerous and are definitely not a way to cure your mental illness. So like, exercise some caution with that one. There's lots of ways that we can use essential oils that are like fun and cool, but by no means are they the cure-all miracle drug that Young Living would have you believe. So like, chillax. Also, just as a pro tip, if you like essential oils, you can buy them from places like Sprouts and Amazon. Amazon's like a little sketchy because you can't guarantee what's in there, but like, you don't need to buy essential oils from someone who has a multi-level marketing thing. Like, you can get them in lots of places. And then medication, this is odd to me. I don't know why. This came up when I searched for coping strategies on Pinterest. I don't know why we would put medication on here, as if that's a thing that you can just like pick up at Walgreens. Like, you need a fucking prescription usually for any type of effective anxiety medication. So like, again, a little bit weird, and also not necessarily a coping strategy, because we don't want you to be the person who's eating like benzodiazepines like fucking M&Ms. That's not healthy, and that's not appropriate, and like actually very dangerous. So don't do that. Moving on. This last one is 10 coping strategies for adults. I actually don't dislike this one. Let me see here. Yeah, no, I actually really like all of these. I think these can all be really useful. I especially liked that they included connection and like just being present with other people, because this seems like a very simple thing, but oftentimes is underrepresented in the world of coping strategies. It can be really, really healing and life-giving to just spend time around your support system and the people who love and care about you, and have them hold space for you to be kind of fucked up for a while. So definitely don't be afraid to lean on your people if they are safe people, if they are validating people, because you are not a burden. There's nothing wrong with you for needing support and love. This is like a very human thing. Brene Brown talks about this endlessly, and we all know that I simp for Brene Brown, so I will save you the speech, but human beings are wired for connection, and so like, love that they included that. That's all that I have. Basically, the takeaway from this video is that coping strategies can look like pretty much anything. There's lots of different ways that we can cope with things, and I want to encourage you to either have a collaborative conversation with your therapist about this, or to look for information that is based in fact, especially if you are noticing infographics with like resources listed at the bottom, or if they're coming from an account of like a licensed therapist who just so happens to have a Pinterest account. Those can all be great resources for finding coping strategies that are actually healthy, that are actually helpful, and again, are like based in science and fact and like evidence-based practice. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. If you do, leave the little thumbs up thing. That helps me and the channel a lot. Leave some comments and let me know what your thoughts, questions, concerns, comments, all of that stuff are. You guys know I love to chat with you in the comments, so give me your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel because we have cute educational videos like this, but we also do therapist react style stuff, and it's a really fun time. And that's it. So share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow, and I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.